Hello, my name is Robert Vasquez, and welcome to my very first attempt at a video class where I'll be teaching you the fundamentals of photography. The three fundamentals of photography are 1, the aperture, 2, the shutter speed, and 3, your ISO, okay? They are not to be intimidated by. They're very simple concepts to understand. They work in tandem with each other, and once you can understand what they do and who they are and what they do, then you can go ahead and move forward and get these pictures that you've been dreaming about. And the camera that you have, you can use it to its full ability and work with your mind in tandem with your camera to create these pictures that you know that you want. So that's what I want to teach you today, and that's what I'm going to teach you today in less than 5 minutes! Now first off, we're going to talk about your aperture. Now the aperture can be very, very, very closely related to your eyeballs, okay? So think of it as your iris and your eyeball. Now what it is it's a component inside of the lens that opens up to let more or less light in, depending on if you're opening or closing your aperture. The same thing with your eyeball, okay? If you notice, if you've ever seen someone in the dark and you shine a light into their eye, you'll notice that their iris goes, yoop. And now what they're doing is, their eyeball is naturally closing up in order to let less light into the eye because there's a lot of light in the environment. Now your aperture is the same concept on your camera. It's just like an iris. When there's more light and you want the camera to keep the same exposure as though when it was open like this, if the sun comes out, you close your iris up in your eye, and you also do the same thing with your camera, which is your f-stop. You'll close down your f-stop in order to be able to still get a good exposure when there's a lot of light. And on the other side of that token, when the light goes away and let's say the sun goes behind a cloud and less sunlight is coming in and you're outside and you're taking pictures, then what your iris does in your eye, and you don't notice it, it opens up a little bit. Well, the same thing can be said for your camera, except you have to do it yourself. You open it up a little bit. Now, that's a very simple way of explaining it, but it's a very simple concept. That's what the f-stop is. That's what your aperture is, and it's called f-stop, aperture, iris of your camera. It's all those things. It's very simple. All this stuff is very simple mechanics that are in your camera. If you can use those mechanics and apply them with your brains and your outcome that you want, your intended picture that you're looking for, and you know what works, then you can get exactly what you're looking for. Now, the aperture doesn't just work with how much light comes in. It does, but it also affects something called the depth of field. Your depth of field basically is very simple as well. It's how deeply into your picture, into the planes of your picture, how deeply are things in focus, okay? Your depth of field. If you're taking a picture with a very wide aperture, you're going to get a very short depth of field where my eyeball will be in focus, but my ear will be out of focus if I'm taking a picture of myself. If you close that down and you take a picture, you can get me in focus, the wall in focus, the beyond me in focus, depending on where I am. If you're at f/22, so from 1.8, you're going to get this very short depth of field, and you get a very large depth of field at f/22. So that is the two things that aperture affects: the amount of light and your depth of field. Ta-da! There, the mysteries of aperture have been unraveled right before you. Our second thing, number 2, is shutter speed. Shutter speed controls how much light gets in as well, just as aperture does. But the shutter is a mechanical object inside of the camera that opens and closes. It's going to open, and then this one's going to close behind it. And then it's going to reset, and then it's going to open, and it's going to close behind it. That's the shutter. Okay? Now, the shutter speed is the shutter speed allows more or less light to come in depending on how long your shutter is open. Now, it also affects what's the motion in your picture, how much blur you get, how much motion is captured by your camera's film, so that you get movement in the pictures. You'll get a blur. Is that a good idea of blur? So you can either strike a very sharp picture by taking a very fast shutter. So if you go at 1/2000th of a second, you can take a picture of a hummingbird with his wings stopped, or of a boxer taking a punch, and you'll see that motion, that mush of the face, as opposed to if you take it with a slow shutter speed. If you do it at a 30th of a second or a 60th of a second, you just get blur. You get this blur of the motion that was going by. So that's what the shutter speed does. Shutter speed affects how much light gets in and how much motion you get in your pictures, how much blur you get. So your aperture, how much light you get in, and your depth of field. Shutter speed, how much light you get in, and your blur or your motion in your picture, or your ability to freeze a picture is controlled by your shutter speed. Now your ISO, which is the third of the three things, is your film speed, which is what was referred to back in the day. Your film speed, or basically your sensor sensitivity in your digital cameras nowadays. But basically that's going to tell you how fast that the sensor or the film absorbs light. 100 would be the slowest. 1600 to 3200 to even beyond nowadays would be the fastest. But it affects not just how quickly it gets in, but the quality of the light, the quality of the picture. So as you, in film, the faster it can take it, the more grain you're going to see in your pictures. It was called grain back in the day because there's little granules on the film. Now you're going to get pixelation because it uses pixels. So your pixel technology, basically you're able to do a lot more, a lot faster pictures in low light situations, and you can get these, great low light pictures quicker. But if you zoom in close to the picture on your computer, you're going to see pixelation and color shifts and things of that nature. So my school of thought is keep it low in the ISO to get a better quality, and then only use that as necessary. If you can't open your f-stop any wider, if your shutter speed can't get any slower without getting without getting motion that's unwanted, then you drop back onto your film, and then you can basically speed up your ISO to compensate for that. But to each his own. You do what you want to do. I do what I want to do, and we're gonna get the pictures we want to get. But you know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. All right. Those are the three things. Those are the three keys to photography, to getting a proper exposure. Now, there is a lot more to photography, such as framing and balancing a picture, and especially with the digital age, there's so much more technical jargon. But with what you know right now, you can go out and take pictures that you want, that you've been dreaming of taking, with what you just learned. So if you need to go back, review it, understand it, do it, and you will know what I needed to know back in the day, and what took me a long time to learn. I've tried to teach you in less than 5 minutes. Thanks for watching. I hope it helped out, and let me know what you think. Any comments or suggestions are very welcome. I'll be doing more advanced things as we go on. If you'd like to watch, I'm hoping to do 12 of these this year, one a month. So I might do more, might do less, depending on the reaction I get from this. But questions and comments are always welcome. So anything besides cut your hair or your beard, or anything making fun of me or saying things that hurt my feelings, everything else is welcome. So take care, be good, all that good stuff. See you next time.